Senate will come to order. Senator Hoffman.
Mr. President, I impose a call of the Senate.
The Senate is now under call. Senator Murphy.
Good morning, Mr. President. I move that further proceedings under the roll call be dispensed with and that the Sergeant-at-Arms be instructed to bring in the absent members.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Members, will you please stand? In our tradition, we start with prayer. And today's chaplain is Pastor Bristow Redding from St. Luke Lutheran Church in St. Paul. As a gentle reminder, following the prayer, please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. In the many and diverse ways that you are known, God, come and be present here today. Be a foundation of wisdom as these leaders make decisions. Be a light of clarity as they overcome conflict. Be a source of strength as they serve their communities. Be a spark of inspiration when new ideas are needed. In moments of weariness, give these leaders resolve. In moments of uncertainty, give them courage. Equip them well for the work that is ahead of them. Remind them of all who depend on their leadership, and keep them grounded in a sense of purpose and commitment as they work together to build up a thriving and safe Minnesota. Amen.
The Secretary will take the roll.
Abler, Barr, Bolden, Carlson, Champion, Clark, Coleman, Swadzinski, Dames, Dibble, Dornick, Draheim, Drazkowski, Duckworth, Farnsworth, Fateh, Frentz, Green, Grunhagen, Gustafson, Hochschild, Herr, Heinzman, Hemmingson Jaeger, Hoffman, Holmstrom, Housley, Howe, Jasinski, Johnson, Johnson Stewart, Klein, Coran, Kroon, Kunish, Kupek, Lang, Latz, Liskey, Limmer, Lucero, Mann, Marty, Matthews, Mayquaid, McEwen, Miller, Mohammed, Murphy, Nelson, Verbatim, Pappas, Pa, Port, Pratt, Putnam, Rarick, Rasmussen, Rest, Seeberger, Utke, Weber, Wiesenberg, Westland, Westrom, Wickland, Zhang.
Members, a quorum is present. The following members intend to vote from a remote location pursuant to Rule 40.7. Senators Carlson, Hochschild, Latz, Port, and Pratt. Members, if you'd like to follow along, you can, I'm reading from today's Senate agenda dated Wednesday, March 25th, 2026. We'll begin at the second order of business, which is executive and official communications. The following communications was received and referred as indicated. We'll now move to the third order of business, messages from the House. The Secretary will read the first message.
Mr. President, I have the honor to announce the passage by the House of the following Senate file herewith returned. Senate File Number 3623, a bill for an act relating to transportation, requiring vehicles approaching school buses to stop for flashing red lights. Signed, Patrick Duffy Murphy, Chief Clerk, House of Representatives.
Members, no action is required. The Secretary will now read the next message.
Mr. President, I have the honor to announce the passage by the House of the following House files herewith transmitted. House File Numbers 3241, 3731, 3741, and 3802. Signed, Patrick Duffy Murphy, Chief Clerk, House of Representatives.
Again, members, no action is required. We'll now proceed to the fourth order of business, which is first reading of House bills. The House files have been given their first reading and referred as indicated. Now moving to the fifth order of business, reports of committee. Senator Murphy for a motion to adopt the committee reports.
Mr. President, I move the committee reports printed in the agenda and the addendum be adopted.
On the adoption of the committee reports and the addendum, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Members, we will now proceed to the sixth order of business, which is second reading of Senate bills. The Secretary will read the Senate file numbers.
Senate File Numbers 4257, 3699, 4590, 1714, 4444, and 3794.
The Senate files have been given their second reading. Moving to the seventh order of business, second reading of House bills. The Secretary will read the House file numbers.
House File Number 3379.
The House file has been given its second reading. We will now move to the eighth order of business, which is the introduction and first reading of Senate bills. The bills listed on today's introduction calendar are given their first reading and referred as indicated with the following modifications. Members, if you go to page 5, you will see Senate file number 4800. That bill is referred to the Committee on Judiciary and Public Safety. If you go to page 11, you'll see Senate file number 4854, and that bill has been referred to the Committee on Capital Investments. As I mentioned, members, the bills listed on today's introduction calendar are given their first reading and referred as indicated. Now moving to the ninth order of business. The ninth order of business is motions and resolutions. Members, we will adopt the author's motions as one motion. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion prevails. Members, I will now call on some individual authors for a motion. We will start with Senator Parr. Senator Parr.
Thank you, President Champion. I move that SF number 1671 be withdrawn from the Committee on Judiciary and Public Safety and be referred to the Committee on Housing and Homelessness Prevention.
Senator Draham.
Thank you, Mr. President. As everybody knows in the chamber, I really love talking about housing, but I do believe this is a landlord-tenant law bill, and the proper jurisdiction is in judiciary. So I am concerned this late in the year that it will not have time to go to judiciary. So I just want to make a statement that I think that we should encourage the Committee of Origin to hear a bill first before it moves to a different committee. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Senator Parr.
President Champion, if I could request a roll call, please.
Roll call requested, roll call granted. Any additional conversation on the Parr motion? Seeing none, the Secretary will take the roll on the Parr motion. Members, please vote. Senator voting. For those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Carlson votes aye.
Senator Carlson votes aye.
Senator Hochschild votes aye.
Senator Hochschild votes aye.
Senator Latz votes aye.
Senator Latz votes aye.
And Senator Port votes aye.
And Senator Port votes aye. Senator Lang, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Pratt votes no.
Senator Pratt votes no. All senators having voted who desires to vote, the secretary will close the roll. There being 36 ayes and 30 noes, the motion to re-refer is adopted. Senator McEwen, for your motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I move that Senate File Number 2373 be withdrawn from the Committee on Finance and re-referred to the Labor Committee, and both chairs are in agreement.
And this is your bill, Senator McEwen?
Correct.
Thank you so very much. Any additional discussions on the McEwen motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senator Hoffman.
Mr. President, I move that Senate File 4452 be withdrawn from the Committee on Capital Investment and re-referred to the Committee on Human Services. And Mr. President, yes and yes.
Any other discussion on the Hoffman motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. The motion is adopted. Senator Umu Verbaden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate File 4580 be withdrawn from the Committee on Human Services and re-referred to the Committee on State and Local Government. This is my bill. I've spoken with the chairs. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the Umu Verbaden motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senator Westland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that Senate File 4589 be withdrawn from the Committee on Judiciary and Public Safety and be re-referred to the Committee on Higher Education. It is my bill, and I've spoken with both the chairs.
Thank you, Senator Westland. Any other discussion on the Westland motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senator Gustafson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate File 4630 be withdrawn from the Committee on Education Policy and re-referred to the Committee on Education Finance. This is my bill, and I've spoken to both of the chairs.
Thank you, Senator Gustafson. Any other discussion on the Gustafson motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the Gustafson motion say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senator Hoffman, we're back to you again.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate File 4662 be withdrawn from the Committee on Capital Investment and re-referred to the Committee on State and Local Government. And yes, Mr. President, I did have a lengthy conversation with the good senator from St. Paul.
Any other discussion on the Hoffman motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that House File 3378 be withdrawn from the Committee on Health and Human Services, given a second reading, and placed on general orders.
Senator Rasmussen has made a motion, and the motion is for House File 3378 be withdrawn from the Committee on Health and Human Services and given its second reading and placed on general orders. Any discussion?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would request a roll call.
Roll call requested, roll call granted.
And thank you, Mr. President. I would also impose a call to the Senate for the remainder of the motion.
The Senate is now under call.
Mr. President.
Senator Rasmussen.
I move that further proceedings under the roll call be dispensed with and the Sergeant at Arms be instructed to bring in the absent members.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion prevails. Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. President. This House file is a bill that passed the other body overwhelmingly to unredact and give access to the Optum report that was commissioned by the Walz administration. Especially while we are in session with important decisions to be made around program integrity and how we stop fraud here in Minnesota, I think there's urgency to moving forward with this bill, especially an idea that has had such bipartisan support. Those who have looked at the Optum file, the Optum report, know that it is useless to us given the heavy redactions. By supporting this motion today, we would make sure that we move this House file to general orders ahead of deadlines, giving the Senate an ability to debate this issue and hopefully pass a bill so that we can have access to this important information that will help us protect Minnesota's human services programs. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other discussion? Senator Wickland.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to this motion. The bill that Senator Rasmussen is asking to move from my committee to the general orders is one that we have discussed, and the language is amended to a bill that has moved as it needed to the Judiciary Committee. The Judiciary Committee has not had a hearing on that yet. It needs to be heard in that committee before it should be brought to the members for a vote. So I think we should let the work continue and the work to address this bill continue in normal fashion.
Any other discussion before we vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will take the roll on the Rasmussen motion. Members, please vote. Senator Lang, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Pratt votes aye.
Senator Pratt votes aye.
Senator Lucero votes aye.
Senator Lucero votes aye. Senator Bowden, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Carlson votes no.
Senator Carlson votes no.
Senator Hochschild votes no.
Senator Hochschild votes no.
Senator Latz votes yes.
Senator Latz votes yes.
And Senator Port votes no.
And Senator Port votes no. All senators having voted who desires to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There have been 46 ayes and 21 noes. The motion for a second reading is adopted. And now the Secretary will give the bill its second reading.
House File Number 3378.
Second reading. Members, now we'll go back to the agenda. Senate Resolution Number 68 will be referred to the Committee on Rules and Administration. The Secretary will report Resolution Number 69.
Senate Resolution Number 69. Senators Murphy, Coleman, Umu-Verbaeten, Mann, and May-Quade introduced. Senate Resolution Number 69, a Senate resolution amending the temporary rules of the Senate.
Senator Murphy for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt Senate Resolution number 69.
To the resolution, Senator Murphy.
Thank you, members. On your desks, you will find the Senate Resolution 69, which is being brought to this chamber for discussion by a number of our members, many of whom are parents. Members, the rules of this body are our responsibility. We know that the temporary rules that we pass guide the decorum and the passage of legislation that will become law. We all abide by these rules. And just like in any body, whether it is a family, a workplace, or a legislature, it is important for us to make sure our rules reflect the modern day living of the people who come together. There are many new parents in this chamber. And it is time for us to recognize, for new parents of the legislature, members elected by the districts that represent them, members who don't have replacements to show up for them, that it is time for us to make space in this place for new parents to conduct the business they were sent to do by the people of Minnesota and fulfilling their obligation as a new parent. I am happy to be a supporter of this resolution. I look forward to our very civil and intentional debate and to the passage of this rule to make sure that this chamber reflects the modern day expectation of parents, men and women, people, to live their lives, to serve the people who have sent them there, and to make sure that the family is well supported. Thank you.
Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thought you said Bolden, which happens to me at least once a week here. So, thank you, Mr. President. Members, as I mentioned in the Rules Committee last week, I learned it had been 99 years since the first woman was elected to the Minnesota State Senate, a branch of government that was designed before women could vote or serve, let alone participate, while carrying and caring for small children. In those 99 years, little to nothing has changed to accommodate this demographic, a demographic that I am happy to see rapidly growing in this chamber. I'll never forget a moment during my first term when a former member, a woman who had children and was serving, wanted to bring them by quickly to attend some business and then keep an eye on them, and had to suffer the embarrassment of having herself and her children removed. She looked at me and with frustration said, "Good luck being a mom and doing this job." Those words sat with me as I raised my oldest son and twin boys while in office. The longer I served, the more those words made sense to me why she said them. And that is why I am standing before you all today asking for this change. Times are changing, and the culture is evolving, so young parents no longer feel the need to juggle everything and barely keeping their head above the water while trying to manage demanding jobs and their roles as mothers and fathers. Women in particular are demanding this change, and for good reason. We saw what our grandmothers and what our mothers faced and said it's time to speak up. My grandmother, Miriam Schlesing, who is one of the reasons I firmly believe in what I'm doing here today, told me a story one day that always stuck with me. She had just had my father. I believe she was 19 or 20 years old at the time. Her employer did not believe that she should have any flexibility. She was up late, she couldn't breastfeed with the demands of the job, and went back to work a few days after giving birth. And after repeatedly being a couple of minutes late from trying to figure out this new role and how to get a new baby out the door, she was fired. Eventually, she found a flexible working environment in the Department of Vehicle Services, where she worked for the remainder of her career and decades to come. Now, the women standing before you today are not asking for their kids to be with them 24/7. They are simply asking that the institution they work for understands that life happens. Data shows, and there's a letter on your desk, members, from an organization called Women Venture, representing thousands of women and CEOs in this state, that states data shows women are leaving the workforce at rapid rates, citing child-related struggles, and flocking towards employers that have family-friendly policies. I've had female CEOs and business owners reach out to me, shocked that this change is even up for debate. They cite guiding their companies to be a culture where young parents don't feel like they're drowning, allowing children in the boardroom and offices when emergencies for childcare arise. As a legislative body, it is critical that we reflect the citizenry that sent us here. The population that sent me here is largely made up of women in their 20s, 30s, and 40s that are growing their families and no longer want to experience what they watched their mothers and grandmothers experience. We want to be able to do our job. We want to be able to carry and raise our children, and we want to know that our employers have our backs if a childcare hiccup comes along. Every job has unique challenges, but the ones here are particularly unique. The fact is, there is no replacement for us. We are the ones with the election certificate sent here by the people we represent to do this job. I have to push this button and vote. I have to speak for my district on an amendment or on a bill. I have to meet with the constituents that come here to see me. I have to speak up in committee and present my bills. I sometimes struggle with the lack of schedule here, which is another unique position of this job. I pack my trunk on Monday morning, often not knowing when I'll be home. Take, for example, what happened yesterday when I recently found out I have 2 bill hearings I wasn't expecting in Judiciary, and thank you, Senator Latz, please don't pull those off the agenda, I'm thrilled, and possibly a last-minute Transportation Committee hearing. My support team came through when an unexpected day and an unexpected hearing came up to make last-minute changes. But that isn't always the case, like in the spring of 2022, when I had a childcare hiccup and had to bring my 3-year-old son. And at that door, right there to my left, I had him put his hand on that door, and he was scared when I got down on his level and had to say, "Baby, you can't come with mommy today. I have to run in and vote. Please keep your hand on the door, and please do not move." I'm lucky that it was our amazing Senate photographer that came across my son, my 3-year-old, and not a stranger. Stories like these scare women away. I can't tell you how many women I have recruited to step up to the plate to run. Women who have felt the call to service but say they can't because the Senate isn't family-friendly enough and maybe they'll consider the House. Today, many parents of young children in this chamber are simply asking that members trust us. Trust that we are not trying to use the Senate as our childcare, that this is for the regular challenges that can be expected while raising small children. Trust that we know when they need to be off the floor. Trust that we will make sure they aren't disruptive. Trust that we will be parents. Because members, I don't ever want to have to look another mother in the eyes and say the words I heard before, "Good luck being a mom and doing this job." I want to tell them how welcoming and supportive the Senate is for people of all walks of life, that we want to reflect a culture that's coming together to support parents and mothers in this critical time in their lives and their careers, that we get when life happens. Members, I urge a green vote on this monumental change today. Let's send a message to the young parents and mothers of Minnesota. Thank you.
Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, understand the sentiment behind this particular Senate resolution. I also am concerned that the Senate is not as family-friendly as many of us would like to see. And for those who might not have been here, I want to just give you a little background on how the first woman who was elected to this body in her own right, Senator Nancy Bradis. My predecessor, she had been one of my great supporters. Unfortunately, we lost her a few years ago. But I would like this body to know how she was treated when she came here. Okay, the first woman elected in her own right. And imagine that first day walking onto the Senate floor after your election. We all probably felt that, a little nervous. That first time we came to the Senate, we got on the Senate floor. Well, I want you to know what happened to her. She came to the Senate floor. There was a senator whose name will remain anonymous. I would just say from a different part of the state. When Senator Nancy Bradis got up to speak, to say aye, he got up and he spoke against her. He called a rule to say she was not elected on the Senate floor because she was not wearing a tie. That was what her first day on the Senate floor was like. And then it took months after that to find a restroom near the Senate floor for the first female senator. You see, there was one restroom on this area, and it had 3 letters on it, men. And it took them months to find a restroom for her during this time on the Senate floor. So yes, the Senate is changing. And yes, sometimes it is slow. And let me be clear, I want to see more women in this body. This body needs to have more women's voices. Now, as a mother myself who had 3 boys within 3.5 years, you can just kind of imagine what those days were like. Incredibly, incredibly busy. I want to make sure that, yes, we do become more family friendly. And we need to see more young mothers in this body, and as we represent the people who send us. So I agree 100% with that. And that is why, Mr. President, I am offering the A4 amendment.
Senator Nelson offers the A4 amendment. The Secretary will report or read the A4 amendment.
Senator Nelson moves to amend Senate Resolution number 69 as follows. Page 1, delete lines 20 to 23 and insert. This is the A4 amendment.
Senator Nelson, to your A4 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. This amendment is modeled after the U.S. Senate, as they have also updated their policies to be more family friendly. And this just simply states that the respective leader of each caucus may allow the member or member's son or daughter under the age of 1 to come on the Senate floor. So in other words, any child under the age of 1 with the permission of respective caucus leaders would obviously be allowed on the Senate floor. And at all times, of course, on the Senate floor, the member must be responsible for the supervision of the member's child. And so specifically, a child admitted to the floor under this rule is exempt from Rule 17.6. I believe this amendment, members, gets to the heart of the issue. I believe it does so in a way building upon what the U.S. Senate has done. And I realize some are concerned because our chamber is small. I understand that. It's not as large as the House chamber. We don't have all of those rooms. But I believe that the A4 amendment should be passed today. I would ask all of our members, to stand up for making this place more family friendly, encouraging more women to run, as it is often the woman who is taking care of the children, but we're glad to see now we have stay-at-home dads in my neighborhood as well who are taking care of children. So I don't want to eliminate the dads, but this is about making sure, hopefully, that we can get more young parents, specifically women, in this body. I encourage a yes vote. And I ask for a roll call, Mr. Chair.
Roll call requested, roll call granted. Any other discussion on the Nelson Amendment? Senator Bowden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would respectfully ask for a no vote on this amendment. Children over the age of 1, young children also cannot be left alone. 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, we heard the story from Senator Coleman about her 3-year-old. If you talk to medical professionals, pediatricians, most of those groups don't advise children be left alone between the ages of until 8 or 10. And that can look different for different children. So this doesn't really meet the need of what we are getting at here. And again, would go back to what Senator Coleman mentioned about trusting parents to decide what is best and what is needed. The other piece I would just reiterate is that this, may have a natural, if we're talking about an age limit here, there's sort of a natural age limit. There is a period at which kids are safe to be on their own. And in these circumstances where, childcare falls through or life happens, as does, kiddos who are old enough to be left alone during those times will be, or they will be in an office or somewhere else off the floor. But there are, young children well over the age of 1 are also not safe to be left alone. And so we want to be able to have that flexibility, to be able to trust parents to do what they need to do to ensure that their kids are safe and cared for, and still be able to exercise our responsibilities of voting, etc. So again, would respectfully ask for a no vote on this amendment.
Members, we're on the A4 Nelson Amendment. Any other discussion before we vote? Seeing, did you want to speak to this A4? Senator McQuaid.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. I really want to uplift what Senator Bolden said. There is a natural cutoff for when a child can't be with you. We do want to trust members, and I want to echo Senator Coleman there. But I also want to say that 40% of all the women who have ever served in the U.S. Senate are currently serving. The U.S. Senate has a long way to go to being friendly to women in general, but particularly young mothers. We don't need to put an artificial deadline of when a child has to be ripped away from its parent. That will just happen naturally. And there's lots of different kinds of children. There's lots of different kinds of parents. Let's trust, every single person in this chamber is the people we're talking about with these rules. They're not hypothetical. Let's trust each other to be adults, to be parents, and to do what's right for our kids. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the A4 Nelson Amendment? Senator Marty.
Mr. President, just wanted to request a roll call if one hasn't been requested.
On the board, roll call was requested and a roll call granted. Any other discussion of the A4 Nelson Amendment? Seeing none, the Secretary will take the roll on the A4 Nelson Amendment. Members, please vote. Senator Bowden, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Carlson votes no.
Senator Carlson votes no.
Senator Hochschild votes no.
Senator Hochschild votes no.
And Senator Latz votes no.
And Senator Latz votes no. Senator Lang, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Pratt votes aye.
Senator Pratt votes aye.
Senator Lucero votes aye.
Senator Lucero votes aye. All members having voted who desires to vote, the secretary will close the roll. There being 32 ayes and 35 nays, the Nelson Amendment is not adopted. Any additional amendments on the resolution? Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the A2 amendment.
Senator Johnson moves the A2 amendment. The secretary will report the A2 amendment.
Senator Johnson moves to amend Senate Resolution number 69 as follows. Page 1, line 21, after the first floor, insert. This is the A2 amendment.
Senator Johnson, to your A2 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. What the A2 amendment does is simply puts a deadline on this of December 31st, 2026, allowing the chamber body to take some time in the policy itself, understanding how it will work here. As you can see when you're looking around the chamber itself, space is extremely limited in this facility. If I bring my 14-year-old son or my 10-year-old son or my 12-year-old daughter and put them right here with a chair beside me, it cuts off access for ingress and egress of the building itself. There are a number of other issues regarding customs and usage that we have as well, too. But what the A2 amendment would allow us to do is get some experience with the policy as written in the resolution itself, and then come back to the table at the end of this year and refine the resolution and the rules on the floor for the ability for us to effectively work as a body, but also accommodate the needs of the members of this body. So, Mr. President, I do move the A2 amendment and look for support on that.
Senator Johnson has put forth the A2 amendment. Any other discussion on the A2 amendment? Senator McQuaid.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I'm going to ask for a no vote here. Please don't make the next generation of moms who come in next year have to fight this fight all over again. There are at least 4 women in this chamber right now who can tell you stories about losing the ability to breastfeed because of this job. And if we have to fight this fight again come next January, what if we have a new mom then? Time matters. Days matter. So I think we can make this rule permanent and our temporary rules so that we can tell every person who's running for office, every person who's coming into this chamber, that they were valued and that they were thought of and that they don't have to fight this every year. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, first I'd like to request a roll call.
Roll call requested, roll call granted.
Thank you, Mr.
Senator
President.
Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think it is important for us to recognize that our rules are called the temporary rules, and that is because they are ours, and we adopt them at the start of every biennium. I expect that when we come back, a new legislature after this election, that we're going to be taking again a look at our rules and deciding what works for us and what doesn't work for us. All of them, including if we adopt this rule, we will do the same with that. It would be unusual from my perspective to put a note of a time frame in one of our temporary permanent rules, because as a body, these are our rules and we debate them and set them together. So I'd ask for no vote. Thank you.
Senator Marty.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had a similar motion in a proposal in Rules Committee, which Rules Committee did appropriately reject. I think that we're not taking this issue with the sincere need we have. Senator Coleman, Senator Umuver-Benton, and others recognize the need to change this and change it now. And as Senator Murphy pointed out, these are temporary rules, and come next session, the legislature will take up the rules and saying we're going to make a temporary addition to the temporary rules, so you got to do this one before anything else happens. Then those who are in the midst of this situation, we're basically saying we don't treat your needs respectfully. I've been here a long time. I served with Senator Bradis. My seatmate, former nun from Austin, Minnesota, was the senator who made sure women had a restroom here. There was one in that corner of the building that said senators only, and she walked right into it saying she's a senator. Took Senate staff less than 2 weeks to put a temporary women's restroom in the stairwell here until they could build a more permanent one. That's not welcoming, and we're still at that stage where we're not welcoming people enough. And I trust members of the legislature to be responsible parents. I thought there might be an amendment to limit it to under 10 or something like that. I can understand that, but in the Senate, Senator Johnson used the example of a 14-year-old who's interested in civics, and as a child, can you let them sit next to you and block the aisle? And no, you can't do that. That's what we have something called the gallery for. If you got family members who want to see what's happening, bring them up there. But it's different with young children. It's different with parents who are nursing. It's different in this situation. We have not been a welcoming body for all these times, and I think that the folks who led here before our times, who fought against these fights, I think it's time to fix it now. And if people want to tweak it next year, they can tweak it next year, but don't sunset a temporary rule. Take a temporary addition to temporary rules. Let's make it permanent now. I think it's a matter of respect. I think it's a matter of accommodation. Under the ADA, I kind of think this ought to be part of that. But we're not dealing with all that here. Let's just say now that we're making the decision today, and let's put it in place. And if the next legislature feels it's gone too far or not far enough, they can change it. But let's put it in place now. Let's be respectful of senators such as Senator Coleman and Senator Umu Verbaeten, who are not getting respectful treatment and deserve it. I urge you to oppose the amendment.
Members, just a reminder, we're on the A2 Johnson amendment. Senator Draheim.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, members, for the discussion. I applaud the effort of the body to kind of address family. I think that's wonderful. And I know it is a challenge and a sacrifice for people to be here, to be away from their family. I kind of perceive myself as being a practical guy. But one of the things about me is my size. I'm a big guy. And I feel bad about the pages trying to sneak behind me to go up the rows to hand out paperwork. ADA was just mentioned. I've done a lot of bills in my time here about ADA and the compliance of ADA. And we currently don't have a member in a wheelchair. I know we have had a member in a wheelchair. And you look around the room right now, members, you see our good staff that we cannot do our job without lying around the outside of the chamber. We can't do our work without them. Then I'm going to bring up one other issue that I don't think has been touched on, and that is hearing. Mr. President, you know, you have quieted us many times when we get too loud. And some of us in this chamber have a hard time hearing. Others use hearing as our main sense to understand our environment and what's going on the floor so we can do our jobs. And what I've always tried to do in my time here, Mr. President, is try to find solutions. And to me, the best solution would be to convert one of our conference rooms right off the retiring room into a parenting room. Put a live stream TV in there so members can keep track of what's going on. And then parents can have that bonding time with their children. So we have remote voting. But my main concern, and the reason I rise today, is the space limitations in this room. I think a fire chief would have issues sometimes when we're in here without having clear lanes on the exterior of the room to exit if there was a fire. And I know we're not talking a lot of children in here at once. Not everybody in this chamber has 12 children. I won't mention the member that does. But I think we all know him. He's a great family man, and I'm sure he would love to have his family here with him, but it's not practical. So with that, I'll let others speak, Mr. President. I just want to recap. I commend the intent of what we're trying to accomplish here with this resolution, but I think there is a better way. My recommendation, we try it, we sunset it. I would love to see a conference room converted for future legislators into a parenting room. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the A2 Johnson amendment? Senator Housley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just a little frustrated with this resolution because of the process. I think it's a worthy cause to be debated. As Leader Murphy said, our temporary rules are passed at the beginning of session, but this just popped up less than a week ago is when we found out about this. Less than a week ago, to go from the decorum that we have here in the Senate to allowing kids, minors, on the floor when this had never been discussed before. There are so many questions that I have. One, first we were like, what's the age? And there was really no limit on the age, so it's up to age 17. And then, do the kids get to come on the floor with their car seats, or do they come on with their sippy cups and their snacks? Again, is there room on the floor? Mr. President, I feel like it took us 10 years to be able to carry a clear bottle of water to our seats. 10 years that was debated. And this didn't go through any other committees. It was just in rules and then pops here on the floor when we just found out, literally 2 nights ago was when our caucus found out about it. So, Mr. President, I do feel in the Senate we have a very family-friendly environment. We are allowed to bring our kids to our offices. You can bring the babysitter, or you can bring a grandparent. They're welcome everywhere. The only place a child is not allowed in our whole jobs here is right here on the floor when we vote. And as somebody said in caucus the other night, so the only problem is when you're on the floor, you cannot speak. So maybe we should be discussing, is there technology that the member who is off the floor can speak when they're off the floor? We already have remote voting. So for all of those women that came before us that had, and I have 4 children myself, and I have 6 grandchildren, and I'm telling you, good luck being a mom with any job, You cannot bring, I was a waitress while I had 2 of them, and I could not bring them to work with me. My friend is a lawyer. She cannot bring them to court with her. You cannot bring them to the surgery room if you're a doctor or a nurse. There are so many careers. I feel we are very, very family-friendly here at the Senate. So for this to come up and not even be debated anywhere, just a temporary rules change in the last week, let's just do it, allow all, and how many children? How many children? Many of us have more than 1, so can we bring all 4 on the Senate floor and try to get around them and Senator Draheim and the potential wheelchair when there's an emergency? What about staff? What kind of predicament does that put them in when a child is misbehaving, yet the parent is speaking? So we haven't even heard from them where they stand on this. So, Mr. President, I just feel that we do have a lot of flexibility here in this career already, but we should be looking at some other options like a parent room off the side or technology so a parent can speak. But I think this is a very, very serious job. We are debating laws here, and so let's show the institution some respect. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other discussion on the A2 Johnson amendment? Senator Westland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. President, it is a little frustrating to be sitting on this floor, I will admit, and it is irritating, but for different reasons than we've just heard. I think what is the most irritating about this entire conversation is the suggestion that this will primarily affect women, but not just women. But the arguments we are hearing today, as one of my colleagues mentioned previously in a private conversation, is you're basically saying that women who have been elected to office here, who are elected to office to pass laws, to represent their constituents, are not going to exercise the appropriate judgment when it comes to having their child on the floor, that we cannot be trusted to be responsible, to be respectful, to maintain decorum. I think that's outrageous, and I think it's insulting. Absolutely insulting. This is about coming into the 21st century, for God's sake.
Any other discussion on the A2 Johnson amendment? Seeing Senator Johnson gets the last word before we vote. Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate the opportunity to just speak a little bit to this. We've heard a lot of arguments, pro and con, regarding the amendment itself. I just want to talk a little bit about where Senator Housley was going with this, simply on the process of this. This is not, we're not, trying to undercut anything. We're just simply trying to get our hands around how this would interact with our institution. We've been here for since 1885, or 1888, I should say, 1858, working, trying to figure out how we do this process better and better. And that's what we do as a country, as a democracy, as a republic. We're constantly trying to improve our processes. How do we get more voices, more people part of this process? And, this is an opportunity to really do that. However, what I don't appreciate is simply hearing about this late last week in a rules hearing and then coming to the floor this week to be put into our rules and said, hey, this is what we want, so you all have to just sit back and not have the debate on this. We want to make sure that we're talking about this. Some of the things that were said earlier, quite frankly, just are not true. When we talk about minor children, I talked about my 14-year-old son being on the floor with me, right next to me here. And we heard that no, they would be asked to go up into the gallery. But according to the rules here that I'm reading, the resolution that's before us does not point that out. And Mr. Chair, maybe I could ask the member who made that point, if Senator Marty, if he would yield. Mr. President, could I ask that?
Senator Marty, will you yield? He will yield. Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Marty, where within this new language does it say that children 14 and older will be asked to go to the gallery?
Senator Marty, to the question.
Mr. President, Senator Johnson, this rule does not. There are rules in our rule book, and I don't have it in front of me right now, on decorum on the Senate floor, and I think that I trust the members of this body to do that. I think there's a big difference between a 14-year-old who wants to learn about civics and a 2-year-old or a 1-year-old who's nursing and the mother trying to respect them. So this language, as you point out, does not say that a 14-year-old would have to be in the gallery. What we're counting on is the parent being responsible, and if not, the decorum rules allow the sergeants to help address that issue. But I think that this rule change addresses something urgent. If you feel that there are going to be people who are going to be trying to have 12-year-old, 15-year-old kids coming in here to learn about government and so on, I think in that situation, the other rules take care of it with decorum and allowing debate to process well. We have people who are very careful. If we're chatting on the floor during a debate, the president calls people out. I think our members have been responsible, but no, there is nothing in this rule that does. It's our other rules on decorum.
Senator Johnson.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. And speaking of decorum as well, then, too, if we're going to be relying on decorum, I understand that as, part of the tradition of this body has been a coat and tie for all members that are part of this. It was a big change many years ago to usage and customs and usage when women were not required to have coat and tie here. So, you know, you talked about that, Senator Marty, regarding customs and usage. What would be the effective change that our staff and our president would have to do in order to make this change to customs and usage as well, too? How would that be handled? Mr. President, could I ask Senator Marty to yield?
Senator Marty, will you yield? He will yield. Senator Johnson. Senator Johnson's already asked the question. Now, Senator Marty.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, yes, the understanding of what decorum is and proper behavior. I remember a time when one of my DFL colleagues, a native of India, his parents were, he came in wearing a Nehru jacket. He was probably the best dressed person in the Senate that day, and somebody objected that he was not meeting the code of conduct in here for floor attire, and I believe it says for both men and women, I believe it says respectful attire or appropriate attire, I think is the language, which has been loosely interpreted, or some people's eyes should be strictly interpreted, as men have to wear coats and ties. And I think that's not what the plain reading of appropriate attire is, and I think that members of this body can make good judgments about that. And so I think that the rules, when we allow parents to come in here with their children, if they are disrupting things, the Senate president calls them out. He calls us out, even if we're just having a good time talking with somebody else about some provision. The Senate president has been very good at that. I trust that to continue. And this does require, as you see in here under the bill, it requires the approval of the caucus leader, which means that you and Senator Murphy could be a check and balance if you don't feel that the existing decorum things are followed enough by the president and others.
Senator Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. And as you can see, members, I mean, there are still a number of questions that we just want to get through. This isn't about the substance of the bill, but how it's going to be acted out within the body itself. Simply has not had an opportunity to be thoroughly vetted by a large majority of the body. Today is the first day that we're having this opportunity, and a lot of questions continue to come up. This is something that we should be looking at as we continue through this session. But, Mr. President, I just ask for support of the A2 amendment. Thank you.
All right, the Secretary will take the roll on the A2 Johnson amendment. Senator Bowden, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Carlson votes no.
Senator Carlson votes no.
Senator Hauschild votes no.
Senator Hauschild votes no.
And Senator Latz votes no.
Senator Latz votes no. Senator Lang, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Pratt votes no.
Senator Pratt votes no.
Senator Lucero votes yes.
Senator Lucero votes yes.
Senator Jasinski votes yes.
Senator Jasinski votes yes. Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the extra time. Senator Miller votes aye.
Senator Miller votes aye. All members having voted who desires to vote, the Secretary will now close the roll. There being 29 yeas and 38 noes, the A2 Johnson Amendment is not adopted. Senator Heinzman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to offer the A50.
Senator Heisman offers the A50 amendment. The Secretary will report the A50 Heisman amendment.
Senator Heinzman moves to amend Senate Resolution number 69 as follows. Page 1, delete lines 20 to 23 and insert. This is the A50 amendment.
Senator Heisman, to your A50 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment would move the age to a child who is 5 years of age or younger. I think that is a good compromise between the age 1 and younger and all minors. So please support. Thanks.
Any other discussion on the A50 amendment? Senator Bowden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, again, would respectfully ask for a no vote on this amendment. As shared earlier, it is, kiddos above age 5 can also not be left alone. And if we are, focusing on the health and safety of kids, age 5 doesn't meet that. We want to be sure that all kids have what they need and are cared for and safe, and that parents are also still allowed to and able to do their job and their responsibilities. I also would just reiterate what was shared before, that this also has to have the approval of a caucus leader. There are checks and balances built in, and we should be trusting parents who know what is best, who know how to behave in this environment, and so I would ask for a no vote on this amendment.
Senator Friends.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to request a roll call.
Roll call requested, roll call granted. Senator Kunish.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I would ask members not to support this amendment. I remember back in the day when I served in the other body. The first year I was elected, there was a state representative that had 2 brand new twin babies. 2 of them, not just one. And we embraced those children as a caucus, well, on both sides. Those babies were cared for by both sides of the aisle. And if you want to find a good way to create good feeling between 2 caucuses that often don't agree, I would say bring babies to the legislature. And that was not a problem because that parent knew when and how to manage the children. And we did it together as a team. There was another family that brought their children to the house, number of children of varying ages, not just 5 years old and younger, but quite a few of them above that age. And I can tell you that I enjoyed getting to know those children. I enjoyed talking books with that older child. And when it became too much, it was the responsibility of that parent to either ask remove their children from the floor or from the area, or it was up to the leaders of the caucuses to make those decisions. So again, and we hear it again and again, let's make sure that we are not punishing the parent that brings a child onto the floor of the Senate, but to embrace that and recognize that we are the ones in control of the situation. And so with that, I would ask we not support this amendment.
Senator Umu Verbatim. Okay, Senator McQuaid, we saw you standing earlier, so you were on our list. Sorry about that. Senator McQuaid.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move an amendment to the amendment on line 1.4, strike the word 5 and insert the word 10.
The Secretary will report the amendment to the amendment.
Senator McQuaid moves to amend the A50 amendment as follows. Page 1, line 4, delete 5 and insert 10.
Senator McQuaid, to your amendment to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, or Mr. President, excuse me. Members, I agree with what my colleagues Rose and spoke of before. I do think that we should trust parents, and I've served with a number of members in this chamber in the other body who had children on the floor that were over the age of 5. But if we wanted to at least go by some sort of guideline, I think pediatricians don't recommend children are left alone until they're 9 or 10 years old. And also, we work hours that might be appropriate for a child to be at home during the day, but not at night. And so in recognition of that, if folks feel like we need an age limit, I'm going to recommend we go with pediatricians and pick 10.
Members, we're on the amendment to the amendment. And just for clarity, the roll call right now is for the underlying amendment. And I just want to be clear that if there's a desire for the amendment to have a roll call, that has to be clarified. Senator McQuaid.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would request a roll call.
Roll call requested, roll call granted. Senator Heisman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I come with unique perspective to this issue because before I was elected to the Senate, my husband was elected to the Minnesota House of Representatives. And as family, we have 6 children, and we brought our 6 children to St. Paul. When my husband's in St. Paul, we're in St. Paul. We experienced the family-friendly environment in his first 4 years, and that was fantastic. After that, family participation was limited on the floor and in the retiring room. And I think that because of certain circumstances that happened, like in the retiring room, to watch a member who should be responsible to keep track of their own child. This young individual, this young child of the member, took, and while looking at the sergeant of arms, took a full can of soda and dumped it out while the member was present. Nothing was said, rules had to change, and my family was excluded along with all the other members' families for a time. That was really hard to go through because as responsible parents, we were also punished, but it's not always true that members will take, parents get exhausted, there are excuses and reasons why maybe children will misbehave and not be held accountable. But I, for that reason, I'm going to ask for a no vote on the amendment to the amendment and support mine. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the amendment to the amendment? Senator Port.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of the amendment to the amendment. I have slightly older kids now. They're in their tweens and teen years. But when they were young, especially in that 5 to 6 to 7-year-old range, they were pretty shy. They were pretty nervous around large groups of new people, and I don't think I could have put them up in the gallery to watch for a period of time while I came down here to speak or vote. But they would have been fine sitting by me with crayons and a coloring book, but not left alone up there. I think Senator McQuaid's amendment to say at 10, we can have them be up in the gallery or in the president's office or find these childcare rooms that everyone keeps talking about where theoretically we could leave children but not alone. That age feels appropriate. So I ask for support for Senator McQuaid's amendment to the amendment.
Members, again, we're on the McQuaid amendment to the amendment. Any other discussions on the amendment to the amendment before we vote? Senator McQuaid, are you okay? You ready to vote, or did you want to say anything? You're good. Here we go. The secretary will take the roll on the McQuaid amendment to the amendment. Senator Lang, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Lucero votes no.
Senator Lucero votes no.
Senator Jasinski votes no.
Senator Jasinski votes no.
Senator Miller votes no.
Senator Miller votes no.
Senator Johnson votes no.
And Senator Johnson votes no. Senator Bowden, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Carlson votes aye.
Senator Carlson votes aye.
Senator Hochschild votes aye.
Hochschild votes aye.
Senator Latz votes aye.
Senator Latz votes aye. All senators having voted who desires to vote, the secretary will close the roll. There have been 37 ayes and 29 nays. The amendment to the amendment is adopted. Members, we are now on the underlying amendment. Senator Klein.
Mr. President, I would like to place the Senate under call for the remainder of this resolution.
The Senate is now under call. Senator Klein.
Mr. President, I move that further proceedings under the roll call be dispensed with and the Sergeant at Arms be instructed to bring in the absent members.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Members, again, we are on the A50 amendment as amended. Any discussion on the A50? Senator Umu Verbaden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the amendment to the amendment that Senator McQuaid brought onto the amendment before us. I think that ensures that that amendment is at least within the guidance from pediatricians. However, I would ask members to still trust members. I don't think this language is necessary. I think we improved the amendment, but I do plan to vote down the underlying amendment and would ask that members do as well. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the A50 as amended? There was a roll call requested and a roll call was granted. Seeing no further discussion, the secretary will take the roll on the A50 amendment as amended. Members, please vote. Senator Lang, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Pratt votes aye.
Senator Pratt votes aye.
Senator Lucero votes aye.
Senator Lucero votes aye.
Senator Jasinski votes aye.
Senator Jasinski votes aye.
Senator Miller votes aye.
Senator Miller votes aye.
And Senator Johnson votes aye, Mr. President.
And Senator Johnson votes aye. Senator Bowden, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Carlson votes no.
Senator Carlson votes no.
Senator Hochschild votes no.
Senator Hochschild votes no.
And Senator Latz votes no.
And Senator Latz votes no. All members having voted who desires to vote, the secretary will close the roll. There being 32 ayes and 35 nays, the A50 Heisman Amendment is not adopted. Members, I have a number of people on the list. I want to know if you want to speak before we do third reading or after third reading. Oh, there's no third reading. I'm sorry. So now you can speak now. Okay, on my list, I have Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, members. I'm a yes on this resolution, and I'll try to keep it brief. We accommodate members in this chamber for lots of reasons. We accommodate religion, we accommodate weather, we accommodate disability. This is simply an accommodation that members of the Senate are asking us for. We should be supportive of all members and the accommodations they need. You can vote remotely. If this is a good accommodation, members, it will drive more people to want to serve in the Minnesota Senate. The more talent there is that is willing to serve in the Senate, the better it is for the district and the better it is for the people. These are the kinds of accommodations that they make in the private sector all the time. And I'm a little confused where this chamber has ranked motherhood. Mr. President, when a soldier lies dying on the battlefield, who do they call out for? Mother. Vote yes. Thank you.
Senator Housley.
Oh, wow, Mr. President, thank you. We have spent more time on the floor debating this resolution than we have a lot of other bills. And again, remember, this is something that just came up a week ago, and there are still a lot of questions being asked that we don't have answers to, like I said, snacks on the floor, car seats on the floor, a lot of questions that are not answered. But if I'm a Minnesotan watching right now, I would be thinking, wow, those senators are spending a lot of time talking about something that only affects them. Think about the worker, the clerk at Cub Foods, who would sure like to bring her kids to school when they can't have daycare, like to bring them to school, but they can't, but we can. What about our staff right here at the legislature? We do such important work. Our staff is probably sitting there going, oh, isn't that great? My senator can they can actually bring their kids to work, which we can, and we can bring them into our office, but they can't. And they're watching us fight on the floor here for something that we're doing just for us. What about the UPS driver would sure like to bring his kids to work every day, but he can't, but we're sitting here fighting for us. Or our hairstylist, or the nurse at Regents. But again, we're spending this time, all of this time on the Senate floor during deadline week for a last-minute resolution that just came to the floor. We're spending time on that and something that only benefits us. The people of Minnesota are looking at us right now and saying, wow, they must really think they're important. I'm truly, truly upset at the process of all of this. And again, I do think it's something we should be talking about because there are other solutions to this than bringing kids onto the Senate floor. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Bowden. Senator McQuaid.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Coleman and I have worked on a lot of things together, actually, and a lot of those things have been about being moms. We were on the bill that allowed all workplaces to have pumping accommodations and pregnancy accommodations. I've been honored to work with Senator Mann on paid family medical leave. I've done a lot in my job for new parents, moms in this state. One of the things that Senator Coleman and I share that we shouldn't is that we were both new moms in the Senate, and we lost our ability to breastfeed our children because we were in the Senate. And it is a deeply painful bond. There's a picture of a bill we passed, and right afterwards, I was wearing this jacket, and I was reaching up to the gallery to celebrate the passage of that bill. But at that exact moment, my daughter was in the pediatric ICU down the street at Children's. And when we had originally brought her there, her oxygen was really low, and she wasn't breathing very well, and I had asked, can I give her a bottle? Because we hadn't fed her, and they said, no, we might have to intubate her, but you can breastfeed her because breast milk is a clear liquid. And I cried because I couldn't breastfeed her because I was a senator. And when I came back to the Senate after she was out of the pediatric ICU, I remember telling Senator Coleman that story in the back, and she told me hers. It's just not a bond two women in a workplace should have. We will continue doing work for parents in Minnesota broadly from this chamber, and we should continue to do that. But there are women in this chamber right now, 4 senators right now, who are telling you that this job has been inflexible in a way that tells us we're not wanted here, or that we shouldn't be here. We are responsible senators, we are responsible parents, we will continue to be those things. This is something that works in the other body, many of whom of us have served there and seen that it is a just normal, regular, unremarkable thing. This doesn't have to be a big deal. We didn't have to spend this much time today talking about this. And so I really hope we can get a green vote and get this done and get this through, because it is a small change that is going to mean so much for some people, but it's going to mean everything to some really small people. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Holmstrom.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. I'm a father of a very small 1-year-old baby. I love her a lot, and I would love to bring her with me everywhere I go, but I guess we all make commitments. And what I'll say is Democrats in this body have passed wildly restrictive, cost-prohibitive regulations that have devastated Minnesota's child care market, driving up prices and forcing providers out of business. Now those same Democrats are asking us to change Senate rules so that they can bring their own children to work onto the floor of the chamber. The message to Minnesota families is painfully clear. Rules and consequences for thee, but not for me. We saw the same hypocrisy with paid family medical leave and with countless other programs where we exempt ourselves from the consequences of our actions. I have deep compassion for the challenges of members in our body face. I face the same challenges. But I made a solemn commitment to my constituents to sacrifice and to serve people of my district, not to shield myself from the very policies that we create. This rules change does not honor that commitment. And the pattern of constantly insulating lawmakers from the damage our policies cause is frankly disturbing. And I'll end with this. While I've been sitting here, I've had constituents messaging me. And their question isn't, we want you to vote this way or that. Their response is, there's $9 billion in fraud at least, and we're wasting time on this floor arguing about whether or not we should ignore precedent and argue about childcare. Let's get back to the work for the Minnesota people. Let's quit talking about this, move on, and actually solve the problems. Thank you.
Senator Pa.
Thank you, President Champion. 3 years ago, I started here in the Senate being 9 months pregnant and having a newborn. And I remember a time when my daughter was just 3 months old. She was sick, And that was right in the middle of May, where we were here in the Senate floor from day to night, debating and voting on important bills. But she was sick, and all I wanted was to have her close to me, to make sure she was okay, but I couldn't. And I never forgot that feeling of helplessness, being a parent. No one else can cast my vote. No one else can stand here for my district. And one of the reasons why my district, my constituents, voted me in to be their voice was because I am a mom, because I'm a working mom, because I understand their struggles and I live the same realities as they do. We should not accept a system that tells parents you can lead, but only if you leave your children at the door. Being a parent does not take away from our leadership, it strengthens it. It grounds us, it connects us, it makes us more accountable to the real lives, the values of the families that we represent. We can set the standards here. We can decide and define what leadership looks like. And that leadership will not just be here in this Senate, but throughout the state of Minnesota, that other employers and other workplaces can follow. We can choose leadership that looks like real life, real families, and the people that sent us here to serve them all across Minnesota. Thank you, President Champion.
Senator Nelson. Senator Mann.
Thank you, Mr. President. We've had a robust discussion today, and we heard several things. Like, we had an amendment here to limit it to infants, as if toddlers can be left in the hallway alone, despite just hearing a story from a member who said that leaving her toddler in the hallway was really difficult and a scary situation for her to be in, because we don't listen to women. We heard about how we should improve our technology in the Senate so that women don't have to be on the floor, because we don't want to listen to women. We had an amendment to sunset allowing children on the floor so that we can say to women asking for change today, fine, but we're not doing it again. So we can shut up women. We heard about how children are not allowed in other spaces. They're not allowed in the doctor's office, for example, which is false, Mr. President, because I took care of patients for months with babies in tow. And I did just fine. And of course, the difference being that someone else can cover my clinic. Nobody else can come and push our buttons for us. And lastly, we heard that we are here spending time on a frivolous issue that impacts only us. Quite frankly, this doesn't impact many of us sitting here today, but it does impact all women in Minnesota and all of the constituents who voted for those women to represent them in the state Senate. But of course, when we uplift all women, it becomes a huge problem. We have women here today saying that it is a barrier to do their jobs. This rule is a barrier for me to do my job and to completely represent my constituents. And we have members saying, no, it's not. You're just doing it wrong. Again, because we're not listening to women. The lack of respect shown to women today asking for change is expected, it is historical, it is consistent, and yet it is still outrageous. This body is supposed to reflect the people, and yet women make up only 37% of the legislature in 2026 because of rules like this that keep women from fully participating. And it was mentioned earlier that it took us 10 years to drink water on this floor. And Mr. President, just because the Senate moves an inch every 10 years is no excuse to continue to exclude women from doing their jobs fully. Thank you.
Senator Gruenhagen. Now Senator Nelson.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. I had not intended to speak again, but I felt the necessity to do so. Quite frankly, let us be clear, members. Children are a blessing. Children are the responsibility of both the mother and the father. And so I take somewhat umbrage to think that all of this discussion is just about women. I expect men to also be caregivers, and fortunately, that is becoming the case as well. So this bill is about parents. And this bill, I believe we had a good vote, a good position, what should have been done, but it did not quite pass that amendment that would have modeled our policy about children on the Senate floor after the U.S. Senate. I am sorry that that was 2 votes short of passing. But now we have the bill as unamended. And I want to be very clear why I am not voting for this particular bill today. I am not voting for this bill because it has not taken into account all the opportunities, all of the challenges, and all of the needs that our parents, both men and women, face when they are in the Senate. And I do believe that we should pass legislation which will help allow parents to best care for their children. But the bill before us is so incredibly broad that I do believe it is unworkable when you look at the space in this room and the needs here. But I do believe good heads and good minds can prevail, and I believe we can make more accommodations than we have now. I just don't believe the right ones are in front of us right now.
Senator Swazinski.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, and members, happy semi-quincentennial. I'm surprised that no one has mentioned yet that March is Women's History Month, and how fitting that we discuss this topic on Women's History Month. In 1776, on March 31st, John Adams was busy in Philadelphia, away from his wife, Abigail Adams. And John Adams was busy helping Thomas Jefferson craft the Declaration of Independence. And Abigail Adams sent a letter to her husband where she advised her husband to provide women equal representation under the future government. And she advised her husband to create opportunities for female representation in this new nation that we were about to proclaim all men are created equal. And she ends her letter, again, March 31st, 1776, 250 years ago next week. Remember the ladies and be generous and favorable to them than your ancestors were. She further warned against putting unlimited power into the hands of husbands. Today, we fittingly discuss this issue on Women's History Month. And we've got a lot of work to do, 250 years, and here we are debating a bill. It's the same thing I felt about menstrual products, why we had to wait hundreds of years to provide free feminine hygiene. And we've still got work to do on the Equal Rights Amendment, and we've got work to do to change the Minnesota Constitution so that young girls feel they're qualified to be governor, and let's change the words he to they. And I know it's just a baby step today, but nonetheless, it's a giant leap. And happy Women's History Month.
Members, any other discussion before I go to Senator Umu Verbatim, and I want to go to Senator Coleman last. Senator Holmstrom, you're up again. Senator Holmstrom.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to offer an oral amendment to amend the bill to allow for our staff, if we are, well, oh, perfect, okay. If we are to allow our staff to have the same rights, again, if we're going to be patting ourselves on the back over helping the women in this body, I think that we should extend that to everybody in this body and allow all members of staff to bring their children to work as well. Thank you.
Senator Holmstrom, you have to offer it as an amendment to the resolution and tell us exactly the language and where you want the language to be as opposed to a theoretical argument. Senator Holmstrom.
Thank you, Mr. President. Staff is working right now to draft that. I am sure we'll have it done by the time the next 2 speeches are over.
All right. Let's go to Senator Umu Verbatim. Oh, I'm sorry. Someone else wanted to go before? I see pointing. Senator Murphy is not speaking. Is there anyone else before we go to the last 2? Senator Umu Verbatim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just offer my closing remarks right now. I know we've got one more amendment we'll have to take, but I want to make sure members understand that we have an opportunity today to make the chamber a place that is more welcoming to moms, to parents, and to families, not just in our words, but in our actions. Allowing our children on the floor is an update to our rules that acknowledges how our body has evolved over the past decades. We have parents of young kids, we have new parents like myself, who have to choose between the realities of parenthood and the duties of this position. And today we do have the power to change that. Every Minnesotan should be able to represent their community in this legislature. And with these accommodations, we can make that possible. Parents bring knowledge, we bring experience, we bring creativity to help us work together and to make better policy decisions. And I think we've seen that today in the way we've been able to work across the aisle on this change. I also want to just say that I think having babies around brightens the mood and makes politics more collaborative, and I've seen that firsthand when I've brought my 7-month-old son, Leo, to the Capitol. While our state law requires employers to provide space and time for workers to breastfeed or pump, we have the unique responsibility of representing our constituents on this floor. And if members have to choose between speaking on behalf of their districts or voting remotely to breastfeed, to pump, or to take care of a child, everyone loses. And it doesn't have to be this way. We do have the unique privilege of being able to change the rules of our workplace. Most Minnesotans can't do that. And know that I'm committed to making sure that Minnesotans have the accommodations that they need in the workplace. That's why we've supported things like the Women's Economic Security Act. And also, our colleagues in the other body have shown us that we can do this, that kids can be on the floor without disrupting official business. So today we can make a change that makes the Senate better for children and for parents, for Minnesotans, for us, for the members of this body. It's good for everyone if we're a more family-friendly institution. I want to just end by thanking Senator Coleman first for being one of the first people to face these barriers and being brave enough to share her story and to stand with us in fighting to change this rule. We heard from Senator Pah today. We heard from Senator May Quaid about what they went through. I think we should be inspired by their stories. It's sad to see how much they struggled, but I'm grateful that they're using their voices and their power now to make sure nobody has to go through that again. And I just want to end by saying that being a mom has given me so much empathy for other moms. Because until you experience it yourself, you don't fully understand what others are going through. And to the other moms in this body, I want you to know that I see you, I thank you. To the moms who served before us, I see you, and I thank you. And to the moms who will serve in this body after us, I see you, I thank you, and I hope that today we make you proud.
All right, Senator Holmstrom. And members, before he speaks, I just want us to be clear on something because I am going to make an accommodation today. But when we are arguing something that is not on special orders, the rule that controls is Rule 36. And if you go to 36.5, it says a member may not speak more than twice on the same question on the same day without permission of the Senate. But you're new. We're going to allow you to do so today. Senator Holmstrom.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the extension of that courtesy. I rise to offer the A52 amendment.
Senator Holmstrom offers the A52 amendment. The Secretary will report the A52 amendment.
Senator Holmstrom moves to amend Senate Resolution number 69 as follows. Page 1, line 21, after the period, insert. This is the A52 amendment.
Senator Holmstrom to your A52 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. When I first spoke, I brought up the concept that it feels as though we're spending a lot of time talking about ourselves. It feels as though we're spending a lot of time exempting ourselves from the reality that the rest of the world focuses on and has to live in. And I think that we should, at the very least, out of respect to our staff who works hard and supports us in all sorts of ways, I think it's important that we recognize that we support them as well. And if we're going to extend a courtesy to ourselves, I think we should be extending it to them. So I want our staff to be included in this. I would hope that you would all support that out of respect to your staff members. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Roll call, please.
Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I'd request a roll call.
Roll call requested, roll call granted. Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. President. To the substance of the Holmstrom A52 amendment. Members, this issue has been a subject of discussion by members of both caucuses, in their caucuses, as I understand, certainly ours, and as I understand the Republican caucus, and among members and staff for a number of weeks. This rule change came appropriately before the Rules Committee. It's the only committee that would take up a change to the rules and was noticed, and of course, here we are debating it today. In the course of that discussion, I've heard the issue raised about our staff. And I agree with the Senator that our staff do incredible work for us and in their own right should be recognized and heralded as a part of this institution that makes Minnesota better. But I will also share with you, because I've had countless conversations with people on this topic, that staff came to me with an explicit request not to be included in this rule. They recognize or have articulated to me the difference between an election certificate and a role as an employee. And therefore, I respectfully and with respect to our staff, ask for a no vote. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other discussion on the A52 amendment? Seeing none, the Secretary will take the roll on the A52 amendment. Members, please vote. Senator voting. For those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Carlson votes no.
Senator Carlson votes no.
Senator Hochschild votes no.
Senator Hochschild votes no.
And Senator Latz votes no.
And Senator Latz votes no. Senator Lang, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Pratt votes aye.
Senator Pratt votes aye.
Senator Lucero votes aye.
Senator Lucero votes aye.
Senator Johnson votes aye.
Senator Johnson votes aye.
That's all I have for right now, Mr. President.
All members having voted who desires to vote, the secretary will close the roll. There being 35 ayes and 31 nays, the 852 Holmstrom Amendment is adopted. We have one speaker left, and okay. Senator Farnsworth.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to the senator from Buffalo for offering that amendment. That actually is helping me to make this decision. I've honestly been going back and forth on what I wanted to do on this. And the main reason is that I didn't like that we were making rules for us, for senators, for people with election certificates that didn't apply to everybody else that worked in this building. Now I see that we actually can have rules that are going to help all of the parents in this body. And so I know how I'm going to vote, and this amendment made it a lot easier because it just seemed to me that we were making rules that only applied to us that didn't apply to the rest of staff. And so that was a good amendment, and so thank you again to the senator from Buffalo.
We are now going to Senator Coleman as our last speaker, and then we will vote. Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm surprised but not shocked that we've had to dedicate more time to talking about this rule change than actual laws that are going to impact the people of Minnesota and not just this governing body. Every single woman in this chamber with small children has explained how this provision and rule change would make it so they don't feel like they are juggling an unlimited burden and a number of tasks and treading water and drowning while trying to do this job. And the women in the private sector are speaking up as well. On your desks, I mentioned earlier a letter from Women Venture. They point out that imposing policies that effectively bar nursing or caregiving legislators from the chamber signals that parenthood, especially motherhood, is incompatible with public office. And I'm not going to lie, it's been a tough week that has opened up my eyes that women, we really do have a lot left of work to do in this chamber. Some of it isn't in this resolution. As I mentioned in Rules Committee, there is no space or time given for mothers who are trying to breastfeed while serving in the Senate. Both Senators Mayquade and I lost our ability to feed our children. I lost my ability to breastfeed my premature infants. And this rule won't impact me. I would not subject this chamber to the 3 little munchkins I have running around, and they're old enough to be out there. But this is about planting seeds for trees for the future parents coming after me to sit under. I know that when I go home and I look at those 3 pairs of brown eyes looking back at me, I know exactly what I'm fighting for in the state Senate. I think that having children around here might just be a good reminder of why we're here, what we're doing, and who's going to be impacted by this than the decisions that we're making every single day. I've heard from female business owners that they are changing their company culture to be more family friendly, and they expect the Senate to reflect that change, that it is time to get with the times. And it's been a frustrating week. I remember when I was running, 9 months pregnant with my first son, being told there's no way you can be a senator and a mother, let alone a first-time mother. There's no way you're going to be able to balance that. I remember having my twins, and after being on bed rest, being told I should resign. And members, I've been really struggling with how long we've been debating a simple change that every single mother with young children is asking for here today. I do want to thank Senator Umu Verbaeten for working with me on this. I know that the language has changed a lot over the course of the last week as we've been trying to take in all of the member considerations that we've heard here today. We reached across the aisle, and I think the lesson's been learned. If you want to bring the sides of the aisle together, you want to get mothers to work together, get between them and their babies. So thank you for your courage. Thank you, members, for considering the amendments and bringing your concerns towards this change for me. I hope that we were able to get some of the changes that you were hoping for in this. And I trust the parents in this chamber, I truly do. And my request would be that we just work incredibly hard to show that we are in the right here, that you can trust parents here, that this won't be abused, that this is going to be a positive and lovely change for this chamber. so that we never have to hear again that a woman isn't running for the Senate. Instead, she's choosing the other body because they are more family friendly. There's a long way to go, but this is the biggest change we've seen. And I'm very proud of the women I stood with today to make this happen. Vote green.
Members, just so that you're clear, this is an adoption of a Senate resolution, so we can do it by voice vote because there's been no roll call requested. And just so folks are clear, because I've heard people constantly saying bill, 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 and even I could get confused at times too, but it's not a bill that requires third reading and therefore an automatic roll call for passage. Senator Westland.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request a roll call.
Roll call requested, roll call granted. The Secretary will take the roll on adoption of the Senate resolution. Senator Lang, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Pratt votes aye.
Senator Pratt votes aye.
Senator Johnson votes no.
Senator Johnson votes no.
Senator Curran votes no.
Senator Curran votes no.
Senator Liskey votes no.
Senator Liskey votes no. Senator Bowden, for those voting pursuant to Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Carlson votes aye.
Senator Carlson votes aye.
And Senator Hochschild votes aye.
And Senator Hochschild votes aye. All members having voted who desires to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There have been 41 ayes and 25 nays. The resolution is adopted. Members remaining under motions and resolutions, I'm going to call on Senator Murphy for a motion. Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that House File number 4541 be taken from the table and given its second reading and place it on general orders.
On that motion, all in favor say aye.
Mr. President.
All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. The Secretary will give the House File its second reading.
House File number 4541.
The House File has been given its second reading. Members, we will now go to the 13th order of business. That is announcements of Senate interest. Any excuses? Without objection, the following senators will be excused from today's session. Senators Pratt from 12:20 to 12:30 and Senator Nelson from 1 o'clock until the end. Senator Latz.
Members, Judiciary Committee will meet 10 minutes following adjournment, and whatever we don't get done this afternoon, we will reconvene at 6 p.m. To finish our work for today. Thank you.
Any additional announcements of Senate interest? Senator Swazinski.
Ed Policy will be meeting in 12 minutes, and we will get done by 3.
Senator Abler.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, and I don't even know where to take this, but I just wanted to comment
I appreciate the security we've been having with all the efforts. But yesterday was just frankly really a problem. A lot of people with disabilities were here, and they were stacked up out the door, pretty much like cordwood, maybe 200 people out the back. And so just to put in a word for those folks who wanted to come here, there's got to be a way to work out some of these large volumes. I understand the issues, but I wanted to bring that to the floor today on their behalf. We had a rally, and they were literally in the back of the crowd, and so maybe there's a way to have the bagged people and the not bagged people. I don't know, but just to, I respect what they're doing, but just putting in a plug for the people who want to come be part of our great process, place here, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Any other announcements of Senate interest? Seeing none, Senator Murphy for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate do now adjourn until Thursday, March the 26th at 11 a.m.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. The Senate is now adjourned.
Had an experience a few weeks ago where my 7-month-old Leo and I were escorted off the Senate floor. And thanks to these amazing moms who are behind me, we worked to change the rules, which we passed today to make sure that's not going to happen to any other mom, any other parent on the Senate floor again. I think this was historic, and it was long overdue to make sure that this is a more family-friendly institution, that we can be parents and we can be senators. We can do this job really well when we have those accommodations in place, and I'm so proud of us for passing that rule change today.
Questions? Pretty, very long debate, as to be expected, but pretty broad bipartisan support and a lot of young parents for the ones who voted yes. What does that mean to, and this can be for any of you, to see that support and to know that there's kind of this uniting push among people who are in your similar positions as you right now in terms of having young children and being in this body?
Well, I could say that women and moms are counting on us to lead in making sure that spaces are open, especially to new mothers. I remember just 3 years ago, for the first time, we were allowed to bring water to the floor. I was breastfeeding during that time, and I couldn't produce enough milk because I wasn't getting enough water in me. That was really hard. But for women to feel like they can't be in leadership because the rules and the system prevents us from being both, it's just not right. And today we made a change.
Hi, Amanda Hemmingson-Yeager, Woodbury and South Maplewood. I think with the bipartisan aspect of it, I think it shows that parents are in our communities. Parents want to elect other parents, and they want to be able to see those parents in action at work, and that's what we're here to do, is to represent our communities.
Several of you have talked about challenges with breastfeeding as a result of not being able to have your kids on the floor. I wonder if you can speak a little bit more to that, very significant parenting decision having to be made because of the rules of the Senate.
I think that impacted you. Yeah.
So when this little one was less than a year old is when I came into the Senate. And because we couldn't have water on the floor, because I couldn't have her with me, we were in the majority, we had some of the longest hours, I just stopped producing breast milk. And she ended up in the pediatric ICU when we were in session in March of 23. And the doctor told me you can't give her formula, but you can give her breast milk. And I just started crying because I couldn't give her breast milk because I didn't produce anymore. And when I came back from that experience, Senator Coleman talked to me about how I was doing, and I told her about that, and then she shared her story with me. And so it was just like, we're two women sitting back there saying we lost the ability to feed our kids, both of whom were sick, right? Or all three, I should say. Her two were preemies, and mine was sick, because we weren't allowed to have water, because this place was just like, no, you can't bring your baby. I mean, she was young enough to just be in a sling, at 10 p.m. at night for an hour, just to make sure that I could smell her and be near her and produce milk. And until today, that wasn't possible. So I'm just so glad that we're being able to do this for the next generation of parents, for this generation of parents, because I missed out on that, and I'm so glad no other mom will have to.
Is there any fear that this is going to be challenged at all in the future? I mean, we saw people try to add essentially an expiration date to this. Are you guys fearful of that, or just going with the victory for now?
I can speak to that. Our majority leader talked about how these are temporary rules. We can always change our rules. I think it really will be up to us as this first group to implement this, to show that it works. I have every confidence that we'll be able to do that. We've seen the other body be able to do so. And I think when people realize the benefits of this change, we'll be able to have that moving forward. And we've talked about some of the other historic changes that happen, being able to have water on the House floor, women being able to wear pants was something that needed to change, and we didn't see a rollback after those changes. So I think this is what we need to do moving forward. We're not looking back.
I will also just say to that point, almost every bill that we have passed that focuses on women over the last 4 years has been challenged in some way or another. There have been attempts to roll back paid family leave. There have been attempts to continue to go after women's reproductive health care. So while I hope it won't be another fight that we'll have to do, we're always ready for it because we've always had to be.
Does anyone know how long the House has had the rule in place?
Go ahead. I think I saw 2013.
Okay.
I was there 10 years ago, and the Heinzmans had all their children.
Do you think people, I hate to say people watching at home, because we all know how many people watch at home. Do you anticipate a really big change, people seeing a lot of kids, or to some of the points on the floor debate, it's kind of for when you really need it? I guess, is it going to be really noticeable for the rest of the session, do you think? The presence of more kids on the floor, or more of a rare occasion when parents have a snafu with childcare, like some of you reference? Or hard to say?
I can jump in on that too. I think that the experiences we've all had have been kind of interruptions in childcare, those last minute changes where life happens. In a lot of ways we feel like we're able to do this job really well when we have our kids in childcare, being taken care of elsewhere. But we need that flexibility because life happens. So I trust that we'll see some kids around and they will be welcomed and we'll show that this works. I don't know that I'm expecting a huge influx tomorrow.
Any concerns that some senators might order their staffers to bring all their kids and try to make this so unwieldy that they can make a point next January or whatever?
I just, on the piece on staff, I want to say, I think we have so much respect for our staff and we don't want to put them in positions to take care of our kids. That's exactly what was happening until this rule was changed. Can't take our kids with us on the floor. Who's going to take care of them, right? We have amazing staff here who are, I think, excited to see our kids, and I can hold the baby for you, but they shouldn't be put in that position. We actually changed this rule to make sure we can be parents, we can take care of our kids, and we shouldn't have to put staff in that position. This rule was important for that reason.
And I just want to say that, originally when the amendment came on for allowing staff to also bring their children on the Senate floor, I voted no for that. And I voted not because I don't believe that we shouldn't allow them. I absolutely think that they should. But the point was that elected officials, we can't miss a vote. No one else can stand in our place, period. Our staff doesn't have that same restriction. We can give them time off. They can be off the Senate floor. And we're talking about just the Senate floor. We're not talking about anywhere else in the Capitol or in our Senate buildings or in our offices. We're talking about specifically the Senate floor. And so I just want to say I'm so happy at the end that that amendment included, our final vote included the amendment to allow our staff. And I hope that when they do feel that they need to bring their child, that they are. And I will smile. I'll be happy that they did. Because I know what it felt like to be a mom who couldn't bring their child to work when she needed to.
Does anyone know how many senators at this point have young children? Like, is there a tally?
Yeah, what's young?
Yeah, well, like I'd say grade school or under.
So you say some quick math.
Right.
House child, or
How old is I don't know, bunch.
Yeah.
There was mention of the 10-year water rule, and I think it was Senator Mann who said, like, just because it can take an inch for her, what years for it to move an inch. I'm wondering if someone can speak to the speed with which you could coalesce support to make this happen, and what that was like to see that, knowing the precedent of this chamber when it tries to change things.
Yeah, I mean, I am a bit surprised at how fast this got done, considering how long it's taken to have some changes take place here. Like I said on the floor, I think if you want to see people get together, get between a mom and her baby, which is exactly what I saw happening to Senator Umu verbatim. I went to introduce myself to her son, and as she's getting walked off the floor, and years of watching that happen, experiencing similar situations, and then I think I didn't have your phone number. I sent you an Instagram message saying, we're done, we're getting this done. And so I'm surprised at how speedy it happened, but Senator Umu verbatim made a great point. She said, when you were speaking up again about challenges, you were the only one. Now there are so many other young parents and so many more mothers that are of childbearing years. And so I think it just kind of had to be the right time, right place, right environment.
Time for one more. Yeah.
When are you going to vote on the Chavez bill?
Is that now?
Tomorrow.
Oh, you're voting. I thought you just took it up, or were you just debating it today? Yeah.
We took it up and put it on general orders for debate tomorrow.
Leader Murphy, if you're at the mic, could you tell us what else we can expect this week before the break? Is there anything you're going to take up tomorrow? I think it was TBD on the schedule for the week. Besides Chavez, yeah.
Yeah, tomorrow we'll take up the Pappas and Mann action on Chavez and a Senator Port bill, two small bills that are moving in both bodies. And otherwise, you're going to see us working a lot in committees before the deadline.
How are you feeling about the pace of how things are moving and getting done heading into this break?
I'm proud of the work of the Senate and our caucus in moving a lot of policy through the committees before the deadline. The pace is brisk, but we understand the work that we're doing for the people of Minnesota is really important.
If you vote on the Chavez Day repeal tomorrow, do you know how quickly the revisor's office can get that to the governor's office?
I don't think it takes much time at all. We should get it to the governor's desk for his consideration well before the deadline.
Before Tuesday?
Before the 31st, before Springsteen is here again.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.